we're alive. That's so much better than being dead.
I think you've said that more than once during this pandemic.
Wow. There's been a lot of death.
There has.
There's something called the death dragon.
Yeah, we're talking about dragons.
People are listening to.
I'm so proud of you. I love this book. It's called Your Brain is Always Listening, and it's about the dragons that come
Let's give them a better look. Your Brain is Always Listening. Coming March 2nd. It's a very important book given what we're coming out of or what we're in the middle of. And
we actually did our public television show this year on both of our books together, which was fun because yours I love. It's about what happens in your brain with these dragons, the dragons from the past that breathe fire on your brain, and mine was sort of like what it's like to be someone going through this with all your dragons. So it was sort of the self-help plus the actual practical, what's it look like when someone's going through this.
So The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child is out now and has got some really great reviews on Amazon. And
Thank you.
So I would encourage everybody to check it out. But what we want to do tonight is tell you the dragons are coming. So the book is called Your Brain is Always Listening. Tame the hidden dragons that control your happiness, habits, and hang-ups. March 2nd, and we have a wonderful event. February 9th, you're going to get me for 90 minutes talking about the dragons and also answering your questions. And you can pre-order the book now at yourbrainisalwayslistening.com.
But tell them about what it means. Like, what does it mean that you've got dragons breathing fire on your brain?
Well, your brain is always listening. And there are so many influences that your brain is listening to every day. Your brain is listening to the news. It's listening to social media. It's listening to your boss. It's listening to your kids. It's listening to the food you
past
eat.
Trauma.
And the book actually starts with an interaction I had with Miley Cyrus, who I adore, who's one of my patients for a long time. And then it's really divided into the dragons from the past, because your brain is listening to these 13 dragons. And we'll tell you a little bit about them. It's also listening to the they, them, and other dragons. One of them is the former, current, and prospective lover dragons. Really interesting.
Yeah, I always joke. I'm like, my mother always calls. Any of you have parents who do this? They said you need to like do this or that or the other because they said there's a catastrophe coming. Who's they, Mom? Where's that? Who are they? I don't know, but they said it's coming. Okay, Mom.
And those are the faceless, and they're great illustrations in the book. They're the faceless societal dragons, they said. And that dragon is always breathing fire.
Especially right now. So crazy.
And I also have a section on sibling dragons. I have 6 of them.
But I think one of my favorite dragons is the ancestral dragon.
Well, yes, I think that's one of my favorite ones too. And he's beautiful in the book. So the book is divided into different kinds of dragons. So dragons from the past, 13 of them. And my primary dragon, their primary and secondary dragons, is the abandoned, invisible, or insignificant dragon. So I don't know if you have those kinds of issues, but a middle child, I'm one of 7, I'm the second son, which in a Lebanese family means completely not special.
It means nothing, really.
And so I've really lived my life. I mean, I didn't know it until I was about 35, but I didn't know that I was really living to find significance.
Right. But what I like is that these dragons breathe fire on the past, from the past, and they can really torture you, but they can also motivate you. So, like you, certainly have been motivated by that dragon to do well in your life. So it's not like everything about them is bad, but being able to
no.
recognize
In fact, for each dragon, I talk about its origin story. So I told you the origin of mine. What triggers it? So if I feel diminished, belittled, how they cause you to react. So it could be sadness or loneliness, and then how to tame it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also a section on what's the upside
right.
of this dragon as I seek significance. And what are the meditations that you can do to soothe
and one of the fun things
the dragons?
is the movies that they like.
And these dragons, like the abandoned, invisible, and insignificant dragon, loves underdog movies.
Right, like Blindside or
Rocky,
Soul Surfer,
300.
Right.
And so just imagine what each of these dragons would like, in large part because one of Tana's dragons is the judgmental
and the
dragon.
wounded and the judgmental. And so you can imagine my movies are taken like
Rambo, they're revenge movies.
I call them justice. You call them revenge. Tomato, tomato.
Same thing. That's very funny. And then so the dragons from the past, I told you about mine. There's also the one that drives the epidemic of teenage suicide, which is the inferior or flawed dragon, where you see yourself as less than other people.
Yeah.
There's the anxious dragon, breathing fire in the middle of a pandemic, for sure. There's the wounded dragon that we talked about with you. That's when you experience trauma in the past. There's the should and shaming dragon. So if you grew up in a culture where that's common,
Where people are shooting all over you all the time.
or a religious faith, I grew up Catholic, I often joke. I had to pass Guilt 101, Guilt 102, Advanced Guilt, and I'm grateful for my Catholic upbringing. I am. There's so many good things about it, but I remember my mother crying when I was 6 years old, and I had told a lie. I had no idea what it was about, and she started crying, and she said, "I never thought I would have a son who's going to
And the
hell."
fact that you still remember that is
It's dramatic. That goes into the should, shaming, wounded category. And there's the death dragon that's breathing fire, which is often, what happens, it feeds midlife crises.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a parent die early, or you had a sibling die early, or you almost died early, that death dragon visits you very early. There's also the grief and loss dragon. Again, with this pandemic, it's just everywhere. The hopeless and helpless dragon that drives depression. And as you mentioned, the ancestral dragon.
which is so interesting.
And you have a story about that I actually wrote about in the book.
Yeah, so I read about it in my book too. So my grandmother, she grew up in Greater Syria, which is now Lebanon. But during, when it was very war torn and there was the great famine going on, and so which over 250,000 people starved. But she remembers it was a very traumatic time for her, just as far as the political climate and the war and all that stuff. But she remembers one day she scattered, her family scattered, everybody scattered because of what was happening politically. And she got lost. She ran into the woods and she got lost. They lived in the mountains. And so she ran into the mountains and she got lost, and she was by herself for 3 days. She was lost and she almost died. She had hypothermia. She had tried to go into a little pond or something to get some water, and her long hair, it was winter, her long hair got, wet, and then it froze, and they had to shave her head, cut all of her hair off. And she never got over that. She was always very traumatized from that. But I remember hearing about that over and over and over, and she would always watch TV and cry whenever she'd see anything to do with, the Middle East or war.
And she was a hoarder.
She became a hoarder, and she saved everything. And she would always tell me, don't throw this stuff away. You never know when there's going to be a war. She would save old margarine tubs and, stuff like that. And she would use them for dishes. And it was really, really quite sad. And of course, I didn't understand it when I was a kid.
And her trauma was written in her genetic code. There's something called epigenetics, where it's not just about you. It's about the people in your past, your ancestors that had trauma or resilience written into their genetic code. So when the pandemic happened, Tana was already prepared for it.
I never
because she's
put
been
together.
preparing for 3 generations. We already had our pandemic room, and
I'm a disaster planner,
and
but I
I'm
never
like,
put
don't
together.
I take care of you? I mean, we live in a nice home, and we're never going to run out
And
of
see, I
food.
think he's silly that he doesn't think that there's going to be something in the future where we need to plan for a disaster. And so we have this like disconnect with this. I'm one of the city volunteers, if there's an emergency, and I'm always thinking about disasters. So
And that's part of the ancestral dragon. So think about your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. What happened to them that really informs who you are and how you react? So this
Yeah,
is
someone's agreeing.
so important. Family, it's biblical that the sins of the father, also the triumphs of the mother, can affect 3 or 4 generations. And what Tana and I
Interesting.
often talk about, it's not just about you, that
about
ultimately it's about generations of you. So your brain is always listening. Section 1 is about the dragons from the past, and we also have a public television show coming at the end
it's
of
really fun because
February.
it's got
Check your
both
local
of our work, and it's fun.
public television station. It's called Overcoming Anxiety, Depression, Trauma, and Grief. And the stars of the show, besides, of course, my beautiful wife, are the dragons.
And they're so cute. They're animated, and they're just so cute. That's why this book is fun because it's. I love metaphors. So taking the dragons and making them animated, and it takes complicated issues or uncomfortable issues and makes it more just easy to digest, I think.
Yeah, and we'll lead you to a quiz on which dragons do you have and give you practical solutions on how to tame them. It's very different than my other books that were really brain-based. This is the most psychologically minded book I have written, I think, in my career. I'm really proud of it. There are also bad habit dragons. There's 10 of them. Like the yes, yes, yes dragon, where you say yes when you absolutely should not say yes. You should say no. There's the no, no, no dragon. People like this, that no matter what it is you say, they argue with you. Just their automatic
Is that why you constantly
response.
slip GABA in my tea? GABA makes such a difference.
She has. Tell them the story.
So we're working on our show together, and I have this reputation for being brutally honest. So I don't mean to be, but I'm just very direct. I'm very honest. So if I don't like something,
I write the script, and then we go over it together, and she usually brutalizes me.
no, I don't. I don't brutalize it, but I'm just very honest if something doesn't work. So we were writing the script together for this most recent one that comes out at the end of the month, or at the end of February. And we got to the end of it, and he goes, "Wow!" He goes, "You didn't say no one time. That was like such an easy writing session." And I'm like, I started thinking about it. I had been so upset and anxious over everything going on, socially and everything that was happening. I wasn't sleeping very well. I started taking GABA, and I didn't even realize it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes me not say no.
GABA calming. Get it for the no dragon people in your lives. There's also a section on procrastination and disorganization. Trouble with the truth, right? If you have people in your life that can't tell you the truth. Or the let's have a problem dragon. There's also an overeater dragon, and the oblivious dragon is the dragon I'm most concerned about. It's where you don't read food labels or you don't read product labels. You have no idea what's going in your body or on your body.
Wouldn't that be more connected to you just don't really want to know?
No, I think
reality.
When people know better, they tend to do better.
But does everybody want to know? Because sometimes see no evil, it's like if I don't know, then it's not going to be...
Well, but it's my job as one of their medical people, right? If you read one of my books or come to the clinics, I feel like it's sort of my responsibility to educate
because you can't unsee it
on
can't unhear it.
What's good for you and what's not, what's good for your brain and your body and what's bad for your brain and your body. And then there's the scheming dragons. There's a whole chapter. I think there's 9 scheming dragons. Like we're getting close to the Super Bowl. Contact sports is one of the scheming dragons because of the incidence of traumatic brain injury. Or we just came out of the holidays. There's the holiday dragon, right? Well, it's the holidays. I should have this. I should have that. Why do we celebrate, Thanksgiving by making ourselves fat? It doesn't make any sense. Or celebrate the birth of Jesus or whatever you celebrate. I was just talking to Pastor Warren, my friend, who's the senior pastor at Saddleback Church. And he's like, people just give me all this incredibly delicious, awful food, right? Unhealthy food. He's like, what am I supposed to do? Say no. It's, you don't want to give it to the homeless. That's a bad idea.
Someone gave you a whole bunch of chocolate and a case of wine this year, and I went, do they know you?
They don't know me very well. And then I think one of my favorite parts of this book is I wrote a new 12-step program because there's a section on the addicted dragons. And we just heard this terrible story today of someone who'd been drinking more because of the pandemic and ended up falling down a flight of stairs. And
now the family's having to decide whether to leave him plugged in or not.
It's really sad. And... But and I'm a fan of 12-step programs. I think they've helped so many of my patients. But the 12 steps were actually developed like 70 years ago. And no longer, 90 years ago.
Wow.
And there's no neuroscience. So I reimagine the 12 steps
they had
from a brain health perspective. So you got to lock up the craving dragons, and there's a whole neuroscience of cravings. Like you shouldn't let your blood sugar go low, and you really should.
Certain foods increase cravings, and certain foods decrease cravings.
Right.
It's that simple.
So, anyways, over the next 6 weeks or so, I'm going to be live a lot, just talking about dragons from the past and the addicted dragons, and so on. Sometimes I'll invite my beautiful wife to join me.
I'm not always invited?
That's your
I just wanted to put
abandoned
you. I just wanted to put you on the spot.
You are always invited, but you will not always.
I will not always
yes.
come. Yes.
Anyway, so if you pre-order the book, I have 4 gifts for you that are spectacular. So I really want to give these dragons their best shot. And so I developed a playbook. So you can go to yourbrainisAlwaysListening.com. If you pre-order the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble and you enter your receipt number, you can download a playbook to summarize the book really quickly. 6 hypnosis audios. I have a program called Magnificent Mind with medical hypnosis, one of the best things to tame these dragons. You also get a free event with me that's exclusive to only people who pre-ordered the book, where I'll answer your individual questions, as many as I can in 2 hours. And you get a bottle of Happy Saffron. So you'll get a free coupon for a bottle of Happy Saffron. Happy Saffron is my favorite supplement from BrainMD. It's one I never miss. It's been shown to support mood and memory, eyesight, blood sugar, weight, I love saffron. Saffron, zinc, and curcumin. 21 randomized controlled trials showing it is as effective as antidepressants. And when the pandemic started, my dad died. I had to close our New York clinic for a couple of weeks. It was very stressful. So virtually everyone in my house takes Happy Saffron every day. And it's like a $50 value, but I'll give you a free coupon for it. You pay the shipping just by pre-ordering. Your brain is always listening. And I also put the link for the event. It's free on February 9th. So see you soon. Thank you for being here with me.
Thanks, everybody.
Tame your dragons.
Okay, so now take your phone and then you say end now.